Welcome to the Two Blokes Chatting radio show on 94.7 The Pulse. Music, interviews, news, and, well, Two Blokes Chatting. Now, here are the two blokes.
2013 was the first time I had the privilege of interviewing a young racing car driver by the name of Todd Hazelwood. At that particular stage, he was probably driving something like saloon cars, not far out of a go-kart where he used to drive at
Poor bloke's known you for 8 years.
And 8 years later, he is now driving V8 supercars and driving them particularly well. Todd, good morning to you.
Morning, chaps. Thanks for having me on the show again. Once again this morning.
Excellent.
Well, officially now you are officially a friend of the program. Anyone who comes back a second time on this program is declared friend of the program because not many do.
No, you've done well, mate. Look. Let's just deal with the present before we go back a little bit. You've had a pretty good year. I mean, anyone who can win a pole position and top 5 finishes. But for such a young driver in a relatively new environment, I keep asking you, are you surprised by how quick your career is elevated? So I'll ask you again, Todd, are you surprised how quick your career is elevated?
Yes, but no. Look, incredibly grateful to think, I'm in this position now where, racing against the elite in the Supercars Championship and being one of only 24 drivers in our country to race in the pinnacle of the sport. So you got to look back at yourself and pinch yourself. Am I actually doing this? But at the same time, with the work that you put in and the effort that's required to get to this level, part of me, no, I'm not surprised because, when you put the work in and that's when you get the rewards. So, we're working tremendously hard behind the scenes and, there's, I've got 2 arms and 2 legs and I put my pants on the same way as all the other drivers do. So there's no reason, in time that, I can't be racing against the best because we're all made of the same stuff. And that's what I'm here to do is to go out and win races. And hopefully in a matter of time, that'll be us and we can, achieve at the highest level.
It might have been Lee Trevino, the golfer, who said, the harder you work, the luckier you get. It sounds a bit like you subscribe to that theory.
Oh, 100%. Look, in some ways, motorsport probably doesn't reward the hard work like you would, say, of a ball sports or, where it is purely based on outright talent. Obviously, with motorsport, you need a lot of things going for you. You need obviously, your pit crew working in sync with your pit stops. You need to be able to have the best engineer who can understand the chassis and develop and make the cars faster. But the driver still has a crucial role in helping those engineers develop the car and using a driver's feedback to enhance, obviously the speed of the race car and developing parts. And, from my point of view, that's what I'm always working hard on behind the scenes, obviously from a driver point of view and getting myself up to speed, keeping myself mentally and physically fit, but also understanding, I suppose the mechanical side of the race car to ensure that I can help behind the scenes as much as possible as well, and that's really where the hard work starts, and that's where you get the rewards essentially in our sport, which is very unique compared to other common ball sports or similar. Yeah.
And on that theme, Todd, your elevation from the Matt Stone Racing 1-car team to the 4-car team of Brad Jones, that extra crew and I presume dollars spent, you've got to provide the driving skill, but how important has that been to you to have this extra power behind you?
Yeah, it's been last year was massive for me, as you described. Coming from a single car team and a relatively new team to the sport. We were both rookies together in 2018, stepping up to the main Supercars Championship, and then getting the opportunity to be working with Brad Jones Racing started last year. So I went from a workshop which had roughly 12 to 15 people full-time working on one race car. And now we've got over 55 people full-time at Brad Jones Racing working over 4 race cars. Do everything in-house from CNC and machining and fabrication side and obviously the mechanical side, but also a massive department in engineering, obviously designing everything in-house. So we're the only regional-based team in supercars being based in Albury at Brad Jones Racing. So it's very unique. We've got a very close-knit team. And in an environment where, I think to have, that many people which get along really well, we're all backslapping each other and working tremendously hard. It's a big kudos to Brad Jones himself and being able to create that style of environment where everyone, does get along but works hard and is hungry for success. It's a really cool place to be a part of, and yeah, like from my point of view, I've really enjoyed it, and we've been able to get some good results. The start of this year's been a little bit frustrating on the basis that we feel like we're not achieving the results we want. We know that we're capable of achieving, but I think it's only a matter of time till all our ducks line up in a row and we can really start to get to that top part, back to where we kind of were last year, I'd say.
We're talking to Todd Hazelwood, Supercar V8 driver. I'm brought along by Rob to... it's Neil, by the way. I'm brought along by Rob because I'm the one that asked a dumb question. So here's my dumb question for today. Supercar races happen, every 3 or 4 weeks we see them? Is that about right?
Yeah, every second weekend.
Okay, so what do you do? Like when the guys are building cars and doing diagnostics and putting new tyres and testing and all that, what do you do between the time you get out of the car at the end of a race and the time you get into the car at the start of the next race? What's your fortnight look like?
It's a good question, and it's something that's really unheard of. What happens to a driver behind the scenes in our sport? They think that we go sit on the Gold Coast and put our feet up and sit on the beaches and sip lattes all day.
And that's ridiculous. It's the Sunshine Coast, isn't it?
That's the picture that's painted in some sports, but that's where probably 95% of the work is done, is behind the scenes, and that's what helps make us all go faster. But look, from the, I suppose, right from the start, so as soon as we get out of the car, is essentially a full debrief with our engineering group, analysing every element of the race car, good and bad. It's more so focusing on the bad elements than the good elements. You obviously analysing trends where from my point of view, I'm working with a race engineer and a data engineer, so I've got 2 engineers dedicated just to my race car, and that's the same for all 4 cars in our team. So obviously you can imagine the engineering power that we have across our team just in one debrief. It's a lot of information to take in. So we do that straight after every race, and then after the event we have a significant debrief, and then we also do another one again where I suppose we all come back together with more knowledge under our belt, and we sit down during the week and going over these elements again. By then the engineers have already got graphs and so forth of other elements, whether it be suspension, whether it be engines, whether it be chassis, and changes that we've made over the weekend. They can see certain trends and certain elements that were good and bad. And then from a driver point of view, we're trying to provide feedback on what certain changes did to the car, did to the handling of the car, and trying to, I suppose, replay our information forward. And then also trying to come up with trends for the next event. So we're trying to ensure, because no racetrack is the same. So once we finish one event in Tasmania, which we just did recently, we're now going to Tail and Bend at the Bend Motorsport Park next weekend. So 2 completely different tracks, 2 completely different track surfaces. So the way the tyre reacts to the track is completely different. The corners are a lot more high speed, so we're trying to get the chassis to work probably in a stiffer platform because we don't want too much roll and so forth. So a lot of analysts on what's worked on some corners at one track, which may be able to help us at the next track in the future. So we're trying to obviously dissect every little change that we do, and we're talking to the millimetre, if not less, most of the time, which makes a dramatic effect on the speed of our race cars. And that's what makes supercar racing so cool, because there's so much that goes on behind the scenes to ensure that we have a fast, what would be a normal Mustang and a normal Z-Big Commodore ripping around 4 times faster than what you'd ever see them do, if they would just come out of the showroom floor. It's very impressive to see what's nearly a 1.5 ton supercar that's heavily under-tired, has a heap of horsepower, and to be able to achieve the lap times that they do. So that's where a lot of the art comes into it. And then obviously from a driver point of view, also working on your mental fitness, but we can't just go down the road and do laps around a racetrack. So all our testing for the season is controlled, so we only get 2 test days for the whole year. So we have to do a lot of mental imagery, watching a lot of video footage from past events and other drivers that you're trying to sort of access and get an understanding of what to do and rehearse mentally. And then obviously, just in the gym and keeping fit and running and riding and all that sort of stuff as well to keep the body sharp and ready for the next event.
Because as you know, Rob is an elite athlete, and he runs the 100 metres in about 7.5 hours. when he gets to the end of his 100 metre race, he can go, at the 30 metre mark, I just felt a little twinge in my hamstring and I just pulled off the speed a little bit there. But in 10.5 seconds, it's all over, and it's really hard, easy to contain that information. You're behind the wheel for a lot longer. How do you maintain that? Oh yeah, actually on the third time I went round that particular bend, it just pulled out too far to the right. How do you maintain that so that you can do the full debrief at the end?
Yeah, and that's why we're preparing so much behind the scenes, because when we get in the race car, we've got to be able to process information like we are plugged into the sensor in a race car, essentially. My left and right butt cheek is, they're my main two sensors, so I've got to make sure that I'm mentally activated and engaged in what I'm doing. I'm not just holding on for dear life and going, holy heck, this thing's too fast, and I can't process the information and what the car's actually doing. So I've got to be obviously in a relaxed state, in a calm state, and that's where the preparation comes into its own effect. The more you prepare, the more ready you are when you hit the ground running, and when you get strapped into the race car, you're ready for anything. And that's where it's really important to be able to relay all that information that you're taking in while you're out there. And like you said, it could be the amount of information you get in the first 5 laps might be completely different for the next 20 laps. So you also got to try and work out, okay, when was the trend starting to change, over a certain distance as the tyres started to wear off and so forth. So then that correlates with the data, and okay, you start seeing more significant trends in a certain way that you look at it. So it can all be quite confusing if you're not mentally switched on and don't know what you're looking for within a car. So that's where I think, particularly in supercars, that's quite a unique skill to have. To be essentially, the driver is almost trying to engineer the race car to some degree by their input. So that's where coming back to what we were talking about before. That's where preparation is key in our sport, and the more you put in, the more you get out. Simple as that.
Todd, on the back of Neil's dumb question, which turned out surprisingly to be a very good question, the change of life for you, it's not all that long ago, I remember that you and your family were running sausage sizzles, and you were going around knocking on people's door looking for sponsorship to fuel your incredible passion for success in this field. I imagine now there's some financial security in your life, but has it changed your life in any way now that you can perhaps afford to do things that 5 years ago you couldn't?
Look, I'm probably not quite at that point in my career yet where I can safely say, hey, life's great, and you can start looking at other avenues and so forth. It's still, I've now cracked into the sport, but I've still got a long way to go before I could, say that I'm safe and secure within the industry. It's a very cutthroat industry. This is the first time I've ever had a 2-year contract within the sport, but I'm at the end of my term, which is this season. So you're only as good as your last event, and when there's a lot of drivers obviously would love the opportunity to be in the sport, that you feel very insecure, I suppose, in this industry, because you never know when it might be your last event, because when there's only 24 spots available, and we live in a country of 25 million people, you certainly don't want to take that for granted. So you got to stop. I shouldn't say you shouldn't stop working. You got to be working harder than ever, and look at your opposition and work out ways what you can do better to keep in the sport. So for me, I'm still at that sort of. I've had a couple of years in the sport now, and it's on the upwards trajectory, which is good, but you don't want to take it for granted either. That's probably where I'm at the moment. I'd love to have another contract going into the next couple of years, and hopefully things will start to come more alive again, and I can become more of a familiar face in the sport. That'll obviously help me secure my future a little bit. But for now, it's still head down, bum up, and try and keep the dream alive.
Must be hard to drive with your head down your bum.
Very difficult.
I've got a visual going on in my head. Do you have a mentor who, in terms of a former driver, who you can pick up the phone and say, hey, listen, Jack Brabham, Alan Jones, I'm just making up names that I've heard of, that you could still, that you can talk to about your experience?
Look, not necessarily. I don't have anyone in direct really helping me, to be honest. But look, there's been a couple of drivers in the past that have actually openly, I've reached out to them, and they've provided a little bit of advice. But now I'm actually racing against those guys, so they're probably not as inclined to tell me their trade secrets anymore. But look, as I said, there's been a couple of people along the way. Most people within the industry are pretty happy to help. And sometimes it's not even racing related. It could be just a personnel issue, or it could be something within a team where a driver raced there in the past, and it might be just a simple question, or little bits and pieces. But really, I just I have a couple people in my corner that sort of help me from I suppose a legal side with the sponsorship side as well, and sort of making sure my life's secure in that end. But other than that, my group of people is really small, and we just chip away, and I just do my own thing, and I feel like there's no better critic than yourself. So I'm pretty hard on myself and push my own boundaries, both physically and mentally, pretty hard. So I like to. I've tried to work with other people in the past and haven't had a lot of success with it. So just sort of do my own thing and go from there.
Todd, while I'm a great admirer of your talent and skill, the thing that impresses me most about you, young fella, is that you've never forgotten where you've come from, and you keep those people who have supported you close, and the fact that you've always been available to chat to me. But I think my favourite Todd Hazelwood story happened this year when I can't get through an interview without mentioning our mutual friend Adam Ray, but the fact that on that trip to Adelaide you took the time to go off the highway and go and visit him in his workplace and say g'day meant the world to him, and shows what sort of a character you are too. And I think that ability to keep yourself grounded yet still working hard to be the best you can be in your field is my favourite part about you, and I want to congratulate you publicly for that, because it's a bit unique in sportsmen, I reckon.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, no, that means a lot. Look, I suppose when you're growing up as a kid, and this sport was my dream. I used to be that kid I was wearing all the Dick Johnson racing apparel, and I was hanging off the fence watching the race cars go around, and that meant the world to me as a kid. So I knew what it was like being a spectator, and how much I appreciated the sport when I was a kid. So when you see kids of today, and it doesn't have to be kids either, just general supporters that make our sport, certainly I'll dedicate as much time as I can without obviously compromising my own program. But the supporters and fans of our sport they're the ones that make us a sport. We'd just be a bunch of race cars running around in circles if we didn't have people that turned up and watched it. So the fan base is a big part of it, and it's something that I'm always trying to ensure that we include as many people as possible on the journey, because I feel like sometimes you take it for granted because you're so entrenched in your own environment, and your biggest problems in the world is understeer and oversteer. Trying to develop a race car, and you don't realise how how insignificant your problems are sometimes compared to other people. And some people would do incredible things to get the opportunity that I've got. So the more I can try and share that journey with other people along the way, whether be great friends like Adam Ray, who's been an amazing supporter of mine for many, many years. And, it's just, it certainly doesn't hurt to spend 5 minutes with someone, or 10 minutes, or whatever it may be, to, ensure that they get a kick out of what we do. And I personally enjoy it too. It's great. So,
yeah, good on you, mate. Home track next week in Tailem Bend. It's a relatively new course to the series, but being in South Australia, do you feel a little bit more emotionally connected when you race in your home state?
Oh, definitely. Love racing at my home crowd, getting all the fans behind me. It's really cool. So, can't wait to get back there next weekend, and hopefully it's a turning point for our championship this year, because as I said before, it's been a bit of on the lean side of good results. So, hopefully we can turn around next weekend and put on a good show for the local crowd.
So here's another one of my famous dumb questions. You finish the race and you're in South Australia, so you go and visit the family. You jump in your car and you drive out to the family farm. You're driving down the highway. How hard is it to not say, look, I can do this at 250? I know the chaps with the blue and red lights don't like that happening very much, and neither should they. How do you then change back to just being a conventional driver on the road?
Look, I'm lucky. I've got an outlet where I can blow off steam on the racetrack, and that gets my kicks. So people go, oh, you must be a menace on the road being a race car driver. It's like, nope, I've got an automatic Ranger. I just pluck her in drive, and I cruise around. I got all the time in the world. I got no rush to be anywhere. So respect the rules, and I think you realise how dangerous public roads are after being in a competitive space. We're pretty lucky in a competitive scene where we've got a roll cage, we've got safety harnesses, got all the fireproof equipment. So if there is ever an incident, we've got an ambulance at our fingertips ready to, in the worst case scenario, at least get us out of trouble. You crash on the main road, you'll be waiting for an ambulance between 10 and 15 minutes. You're unprotected in the car. You got families. Those people that are risking other people's lives, they got to have a long, hard look at themselves, I think. But from my point of view, look, there's no rush, and that's as I said, my outlet's the racetrack, and when it comes to doing 60 down a main road, there's no issues in the world.
and I guess the environment you're sitting in is a little different when you're driving your conventional car on the road compared with what would best be described as rudimentary comforts of the race car.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
So.
Todd, you are a ripper, mate. Thank you very much for your time, and genuinely continued good luck to you. And I know that's going to be supported by the incredible hard work and passion you put into it. And I just hope that we can continue chatting to you as you get further and further up that supercar ladder, and eventually it'd be nice to see you waving a big, what is that thing they give you at Bathurst? Almost a wreath, isn't it?
It's a laurel wreath.
A laurel wreath.
And good morning to Laurel if she's listening.
Yeah, we're looking forward to seeing you doing that one day. Continue good luck, mate, and thank you again for your time this morning.
No worries. Thanks for having me on the show. Appreciate the chat.
Good on you.
Yeah, thanks, Todd.
Todd Hazelwood, a fine young man in an unusual sport. It's a sport that, I don't know about you, Neil, but it was a sport that one Sunday, Bathurst, everyone in Australia seemed to be connected, like the Melbourne Cup.
Bathurst.
What did I say?
Go up there and call it Bathurst, and they'll run you out of town.
It's like Newcastle, is it?
Yeah. Gutsy effort.
Anyway, all eyes were on Bathurst.
Yes.
For that one day, and it was Brock v Moffat when I was a kid. It was Holden v Ford. You had sort of an interest then. For the rest of the year, you wouldn't have any interest at all in motorcar racing. And in this modern era, it's probably pretty darn similar. But having known Todd, I still haven't met the man yet, but I reckon that's about the 8th or 10th chat we've had with him on the radio. And I'm really into his career and find myself sneaking little looks at how things have gone on the weekend with him. And yeah, good luck. Good fella. Very impressive young man.
It's